It's time for your Talk Time Live exclusive.
You are now about to witness the strength of geek knowledge.
On September 16th at the Irvine Auditorium in Philadelphia, gamers and music lovers alike will be rewarded with a night of appreciation for one of the greatest games and musical scores in history, and in gaming history, I should say. The event is known as A New World, Intimate Music from Final Fantasy, which celebrates the 35th anniversary of the legendary series. It is my pleasure to introduce Arnie and Eric Roth, who is the music directors and composers for AWR Music, as we talk about this grand event and more. Gentlemen, welcome to Talk Time Live.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
It's a pleasure.
It is my pleasure, and many of our viewers and listeners who are just big fans of this genre, and you guys being able to do this is just quite awesome, I tell you.
Great.
So, you guys are in Chicago right now?
Right.
That's right.
How's the weather out there, just out of curiosity?
Humid.
Today,
Humid today.
Yeah, it's like 85 and humid or something like that today. Supposed to be
Yeah.
better tomorrow. Thunderstorms.
Yeah, they always say that, and then it turns up.
Yeah. I mean, low stakes to predicting the weather. You know what I mean?
That is true. So let's get underway. I want to know, and I'm sure our listeners want to know, like, first off, just for our listeners and our viewers, how did this whole thing come about, this tour?
Pop, you're on.
So when you say this tour, this
particular New World tour.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Back in 2013, we had just celebrated the 25th anniversary, of Final Fantasy, and we were talking about being able to expand and diversify within the Final Fantasy community.
Right.
That we kept finding the Distant Worlds production is large, right? It's a big production. It's over 100 musicians, video screen. Only certain venues and certain presenters and orchestras can actually afford it in terms of the finances and the resources necessary, a great orchestra, chorus, etc. We wanted to have an alternative that could go into different kinds of venues, universities, colleges, alternative music settings, performing arts centers, smaller ones, right? And we kept thinking about how can we launch this, and basically that's the story, that we came up with the chamber music version, which is a very unique thing and a very different experience from Distant Worlds. It is literally what's in the title. It's intimate. It's you're getting very close to the performers. You're really all about the music on stage. There's no video content. You know, it's really about hearing these spectacular and beloved themes in these intimate settings.
Yeah, Pop, forgive me just for a second. It was actually 2012 that we did that preview event. I'm confident about it.
Was the
But
first
2014 was the premiere in London,
we did a
right?
preview.
We did
That's
a
right.
preview event in 2012.
That's right.
And I know some people were there, so if they happen to hear this, I know they were like, "Hey," but and the other thing is about the music, right?
Yeah.
When we, there's just so much of it in all of these games, and not all of it says, "Wow, this should be for a big orchestra and chorus." Some of it, says like, when you listen to it, this is for some smaller forces, and that's going to be the really beautiful, elegant thing that we want to experience.
That's why I think I really appreciate that you guys were coming to Philly and University of Penn area, because, what better place in Philly to do it? One, I'm only being biased because I'm just literally just a mile away from it. I can walk to that distance. But, it's a real, you say intimate, and that's awesome because you get moments that only you get and only you can experience and share, and just memorable moments for those who are going to attend. It is a very special feeling, and I'm looking forward to checking this out. Definitely.
Thanks a lot. One of the really special things about A New World is that you can hear and see everything. Like there's no mystery about who's doing what. You know
Right.
what I'm saying? So that's really cool to like be able to experience the constructions of the music and understand like, you know, it's unavoidable, that understanding from being so close and experiencing it being performed. So yeah, that's
really heart pounding moments too. I'm so looking for my brother-in-law. You know, he plays the cello, and he used to play for Temple University. So, you know, he's in Germany now, but I'm sure he was really jealous of the fact that you guys are coming up here because he's
in Germany.
Yeah, Eric's
I
doing
will remind him to check the website for that.
February.
No, but he's going to be in Germany in February doing a
Doing
New
a New
World.
World, yeah.
As a matter of fact, it's
Fantastic.
Dusseldorf and
Yeah, and then the 2 other shows that we're about to announce.
I will assure you, I will make plenty sure, and I know he's going to watch this. I'm going to make plenty sure that he actually checks this out in person. So,
Very cool.
now,
Thank you.
Final Fantasy debuted mostly in Japan in 1987 and premiered in the Nintendo Entertainment System, aka the Famicom, using MIDI sound back then, and you know, to orchestrate the game's soundtrack. And it wasn't until like a decade later that the quality of the music, you know, involved with Final Fantasy VII, which provided a theatrical sound that gave us a big budget Hollywood feel, you know, for the first time in the industry. It's pretty much safe to say that we've all three of us have lived through many generations of video games at this point. Did you two ever thought that the video game industry would evolve to this level, let alone with the use of an orchestra? Arnie, I'll start with you with that.
Yeah, well, if I go back to the genesis of our relationship with Square Enix and Nobuo Uematsu and the start of all this, back at that point, the only concerts of video game music were happening in Japan. I mean, this is since the late 1990s, basically.
Yeah.
Without video content, it was just an orchestra concert, you know,
Right.
and very popular in Japan.
Not surprised.
And when it first contemplated bringing it to the United States, that was Dear Friends, music from Final Fantasy. And we did the first public concert in February of 2008.
I'm not going to be able to help with this one. I think it was earlier than that. I think it was earlier.
Much
than that.
earlier.
Yeah,
it was
right?
2005. Sorry.
Right.
Okay, I can't help.
Yeah.
Because More Friends was 2005.
It was at the end of that year.
Yeah,
That's right.
Yeah, okay. Cool.
So we started doing Dear Friends a couple times, More Friends, and then Nobu decided that one of his big goals was to bring the music of Final Fantasy to a global audience because of course, the community is global. And he wanted to get that out around the world. And that's what Distant Worlds was born with, that ambition to try to push the music of Final Fantasy and expose it in Southeast Asia, in Australia, in Europe, and the rest of North America. And
he saw the potential of what this can eventually be, and it's coming into fruition as we speak.
I think he also just loves the concert setting of the music. Yeah. You know, as do all of us. You know, we love the power and the impact that the music has live. It is live music. We're used to, as fans, hearing a recording at the same tempo, at the same compression, and looping every 90 seconds or whatever, right? That's not what the live concert is.
Right.
Either New World or Distant Worlds. It's this big, impactful live thing. The music lives in the air here. And they're concert suites that are designed for the stage. So it's really a unique experience for fans. And they're reliving what they were doing in the game at that moment when the music is being played. You know, there's a real one-to-one connection with, you know, Xanarkand, Aerith's theme, you know, you name it. All these wonderful things.
Yeah.
With Intimate, I think it's maybe even a stronger connection. I think I remember people just sitting there stunned on a lot of the New World performances because they're so close. They can see the oboe playing this. They can see the first violin playing that. You know, what the percussion is doing. So, you know, that's a different kind of involvement with the audience.
There are a lot of great scores out there in the gaming world nowadays, which is very common, but none like Final Fantasy. What fascinates you both about the music in that game series. Eric, I'll start with you on this one.
Thanks. Well, I said it before, and I say it often. The amount of it, the variety, the way that the Final Fantasy universe, I'll just say it that way, continues to include more and more musical expression. Different modes and different personalities of the different composers. Mm-hmm. I mean, like we're all digging so much soaking right now with all the expansions and and that's opening the Final Fantasy universe to more possibilities, right? Yeah. I mean, in musical possibilities, I'm talking specifically in this case. Right. So, I mean, I think that kind of expansive, inclusive dedication to beauty and these experiences is what's really special about the Final Fantasy franchise generally and the music. Yeah. And then last but not least, like how we feel as a community together, experiencing these things with the vibrating air molecules in the room together. And, it's some very special stuff that I know that we both treasure a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
Arnie, you want to add on to that?
Well, the only thing that I would say is you were touching on that there's, I think you said there's no other games like that, and
right.
The point is that we have looked around and we search around. There are some other games that have, single player kind of single shooter kind of games that have a big heroic main theme that's fantastic musically, but all the gameplay itself tends to be fairly wallpaper, either percussion loops or various other things like that. It's not like the Final Fantasy world where every character, every battle, every environment, every plot twist, every level up, they all have their own musical themes.
Right.
And I put that squarely on the lap of Nobuo Uematsu. He started it that way in 1987. He set up the template that way. And all the things that come after that have followed that template.
The template and the expectation.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
The expectation. Yeah.
So, and it's a beautiful thing. And it's actually a very traditional way of writing, where you have specific themes and you have variations on that theme, and it develops over different years. He'll bring back a theme on another game. This is very classical, even though he's not a classical composer. He doesn't. He claims to not have that training, but it's very traditional in terms of the way he respects melody and structure all the time. Right. That's the most important thing for him. So
it's almost like he has a. It's almost like he has a kinesthetic ability to just pick it up easy and just go with that.
I agree.
Yeah, but it's really difficult to write a beautiful melody. That's not. Yeah. That's not something that a lot of people do well. A lot of people do the craft part very well. Arrange it, orchestrate it, do variations on things, adapt it for various action. But writing a melody that's going to live for all time, I mean, there's very few that do this well.
Or like a couple hundred.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like,
and then also I would add, have the ability to recognize immediately which one that belongs to and what character that belongs to as well.
Yeah,
right.
That's what we're talking about. Yeah. Like classic, identities of melodies that are unforgettable.
Nobuo Uematsu, to me, like he doesn't just create music. To me, he narrates within his music.
That's a good way to put it, I think. Yeah, I think so. And it's the way he personally connects with these characters. I've got to tell you, I know personally that he plays all the games, right? He's played all of them. And I will also say that this particular year on 35th anniversary of Final Fantasy, Square Enix wanted us to look a little more deeply on 1 through 6 because of the Pixel remaster issue, reissues. And so it's really interesting for us to go back and look at some of the early stuff that, as you say, were on computer chip, right?
Right.
And now be adapting them for concert versions. And I would have to say that they adapt shockingly well. Again, because of melody and structure. I mean, look at some of the stuff with the opera from Six and, things like that. I mean, it's shocking how well that works. He's one of a kind in terms of the video game industry, no question.
Yeah, I mean,
Absolutely.
shocking. I hear what you're saying, but like it comes back to what you were saying before. It's about construction.
Yeah.
It's about, if you're going to, I don't care if you're going to have it on, like a couple different melodicas or whatever, if you're going to have like really well structured voices and harmonies and a melody that is unforgettable, like we're going to be able to adapt it, like it's going to work out,
Yeah, all the bones are there from the, from the 8-bit tracks. All the bones are there. And sometimes an extreme amount of detail, actually, and it's very easy to expand that out to full orchestra. It's really not. There are other composers that are more challenging to expand out that way.
Yeah. I mean, there end up being different kinds of orchestration challenges with the different generations of sound sources and things like that, right? It's like really, really different kinds of challenges, but that's kind of a different, thing than like when you start with the gold. Right? Like, that Uematsu-san is putting out there, then, it's a good place to be.
So, Eric, you're the arranger of this event, and you had the unenviable task to go over, a long list of Final Fantasy's, legacy score ensembles, which, like you guys said, it was like hundreds, based on over probably 17 years of the series. How hard was it to pick and choose and create the arrangement for to perform at first?
Well, at first, or you mean like now for this new anniversary?
I would only assume that right now it's you've assimilated into the process, but like when you first started, it was like, oh my God, what is all this? Well, I'm going to put this together into a whole entire concert.
Well, I think that what Arnie was saying is pretty right on, that like the stuff would kind of jump out at us actually, like when we were reviewing repertoire for Distant Worlds, it's like because that was we tried to be open to possibilities and keep our ears open to how maybe we could be adapting this, or maybe this and this can go together, or blah 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 blah, and it would jump out at us that like this is great music and it doesn't really fit with orchestra the same way that it might fit for smaller forces. You know what I mean? So and like I said before, there's so much of it that it's really more about like choosing what you want to include, not what you don't want to include, not what you do want to include. You know what I'm saying?
I mean,
absolutely.
Just to jump in on that, there's certain programming things that we look at all the time.
Of course,
right? There's certain things like, have we played that city before?
But he's asking at the very beginning.
No,
right?
I understand, but there are certain classics that we feel have to live in there. And by the way, this is all in collaboration with Nobu himself and Square Enix. At the very beginning, talking with them on each one of these, submitting program ideas.
There's back and forth.
Yeah.
Right.
It's definitely collaboration. So, I mean, there's a lot of things. I mean, for Distant Worlds, I'm always looking at how good is the orchestra, how good is the chorus, what soloists do we have? You have similar situations with an intimate, do we have, a dynamite, guitar player that we can add these pieces?
Do I have that everywhere?
Right. Right. So, I mean, there are the practical considerations, and then there's also trying to present a program. We have a finite amount of time for each of these concerts. We can't just go on endlessly, right?
Right.
So we have to try to represent the series as best as we can within the time constraints. So there's a variation. We can't just do everything from 6 or everything from 7 or 10 or 14.
Does the ambiance play a factor too?
That's a fun idea too, right?
Does the ambiance play a factor too to that as well? Like, you got a concert hall that's like maybe a certain size, seating and whatnot, and certain songs may generate better through that particular venue.
You have a thought on that?
I mean, I would say that it does. And with this anniversary celebration program, we have a special program planned in collaboration with our colleagues at Square Enix the composers, to deliver something that we think is really putting a great foot forward for celebrating these 35 years of incredible music. So yes, that's true generally, and for this particular special program, like that's not quite as true that we're tailoring it for the hall.
Right.
Right, because this is a special program that will be repeated over this 35th anniversary period.
Having said that, I think it's going to sound good in the hall.
We do that.
I've been in that hall before. I think it's going to be.
Oh yeah,
you're going to be able to pull that off.
Yeah, with Distant Worlds, on a normal Distant Worlds, we do the same thing. Where you're right, if we're playing more of a traditional concert hall, we might want to have more of what we would call intimate or precious kind of arrangements, where the orchestra is not slamming all the time, but we're able to, pull it back and do some very creative things, as opposed to when we're playing arenas or 5,000 seat places and plus, where we feel like we need to big impactful stuff over and over again, that kind of thing.
Right, like if you get too quiet, it might not translate as well.
Right.
There are arenas where the air handling is louder than the orchestra playing pianissimo, small. So you got to be careful about that.
Right. So, I mean, your concerts pretty much are based around a number of composers that worked on Final Fantasy. What would you say is your favorite composer that you've worked with so far in the series? Or that's just your favorite? That's your favorite. I gotta pull the questions on,
That's totally unfair.
Yeah, you're on, Pop. You're on.
That's like when fans come up and they say to Nobu, "What's your favorite Final Fantasy score?"
Exactly.
And he throws up his hand. It's impossible, Well, first of all, I mean, just to look at the scope of the composers.
Yes.
Many of them have only done one game or, parts of one game or majority of one game. Right. So they're not throughout the series. Others have been used throughout the series in different shapes, in different times.
Right.
Somebody like Noshi Mizuta has worked at Square Enix for a long time, and there's bits and pieces of him scattered throughout the series. Same thing with Soken, actually. He's on staff there. And so there's parts of him that we see at different points. On the other hand, Nobuo Uematsu, his footprint is all over the series, right? So
unbelievably.
Who's the favorite to work with? There isn't a favorite.
Right.
And the reason for that is because they're all so different. Nobu, of course, has to be the composer that we look up to the most and has set this template, as we said. But I mean, they're so individual. Hamauzu is much more of a, for lack of a better description, more of a jazz or contemporary jazz vocabulary on his writing style. Sakimoto is from 12. He's a much more of a how would you describe his stuff? More contemporary.
I think of him as like having a very personal style.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like, I mean, nobody sounds like him. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like he'll throw in a choice where you're like, wow, I did not see that coming. And it's like, and it's really exciting to feel that. Those kind of moments. I think what Arnie's getting at is exactly right. And is that. While Uematsu-san is the lodestar, right? And has the most stuff, of course, right? And has the most, melodies where you're like, oh, I know that one, I love that one, I love that one, right? But I mean, you also, what's beautiful about the Final Fantasy universe and series is that it's so inclusive of these different musical personalities and styles. It's like it keeps on expanding in these beautiful ways, right? Like, so talk about Mizuta-san and some of the things that he'll do is like, wow, like now we got like something that really sounds like, like we're doing like, I mean, Selbina, like we're doing like this is an Irish reel basically,
Right.
like we're doing here, right?
But,
you know,
but
it's
again,
like,
go back to the early Uematsu stuff,
No.
and he actually included stuff
I
like
know,
that
it's
all
true.
the way
Yeah.
throughout. He
It's
loves
true.
Celtic music. He
That's
loves
true.
jazz. He
loves music.
blues.
He loves music.
Right.
In general, you're
all
right,
this
right.
stuff he does. And that opens the door
Yeah.
for these other composers, right? I mean, that's
It's true.
That's the perspective.
Makes
that
them
I
feel
find-
comfortable about doing their genre or choice.
Yeah.
Well,
I think about Shimomura
Yeah,
and like what she brings to the table is like, I mean, all the way back from like Street Fighter 2.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Yes.
it's like she has like this, you know, like this like muscle, and it's like it's a really cool musical personality. I think about Soken and like the audio design
Yeah.
perspective that he
Right.
brings to so much music that
Right.
feels really fresh in this universe in a different kind of way to me.
Right.
You know, I mean, to say nothing of the crunch that's like, you know,
The rock
a
crunch.
different kind of crunch than like the Black Mages, for example. But
Yeah.
it also
Right.
has something to do with that.
Yeah.
You
Right,
know, like so. I mean,
yeah, but
it's-
because that was introduced in there, right? I agree.
I mean, but we
Yeah.
could go on and on about this particular topic, right? Like,
I will say this to close. I will say this to close out this question. Like, you know, Nobu Uematsu. I swear to goodness, he was his soundtrack for remake in 2020 was savior level. I mean, Hollow Skies. You know, we went through a lot during 2020. It was just you know a hell of a lot. When Final Fantasy VII Remake came out and that soundtrack came out, and then myself and many of people heard Hollow Skies. There were people, I don't know if you guys have heard, but like there were people who would just stop pausing to play the game to just walk around the slums just to hear Hollow Skies loop
Right.
back and forth, because it was kind of to us it was an amalgam of emotions that transitioned from despair to hope. And during that time, that song, that score, it was definitive of 2020 in a lot of people's opinion, because that's what we were feeling exactly. He captured it. I don't even know if it was unbeknownst to him that he captured the feeling and moment, you know, of 2020 from that one part. So when I replayed that game, like I think 2 or 3 times, when I got to that point, I had to pause. I'm like, I'm just gonna walk around so this can re-loop together. And he gets it. I really appreciate that. But I'm assuming that your group performing music based on on a game series, that you're attracting a different target audience, you know, and demographic for this type of concert. How is this different from the traditional audience you normally perform for in front of, like, say, a traditional orchestra audience?
wow.
Well, yeah, no, I can tell you what I've described. I mean, you know, when I first conducted Final Fantasy concert, it totally blown away by the audience and the crowd. The way I describe the audience attending these concerts is the very best combination of classical concerts where you can hear a pin drop. I mean, it's really quiet during the performance of the music because they want to hear every note.
Right.
It's this kind of sitting on the edge of the chair, listening to the music
Right.
attentively, right? And you get that in classical concerts.
Right.
But then you get a very reserved reaction, like, oh, you know, very polite applause kind of thing. And that's where this audience goes another way. It's the rock audience where everything's the big cheer afterwards. Or
That's what I was assuming.
yeah, but it's that wonderful combination
Yeah.
of a roar after the concert, after the piece is performed, but really studious attentiveness to the music, and they really care. They know every note of this music, and so we feel very responsible for pulling off the music the way they heard it, as close as we can,
Yes.
to the way they heard it in the game, respectfully, right? It's an important thing, and so it's this wonderful mashup audience. It's not just classical, it's not just rock. It's this kind of in between thing, which is
Right.
best of all worlds.
You know, I see it a little bit differently. Not that I disagree with you, but and I think you also brought up something like really important there, which is that it's an incredible privilege and responsibility for us to be able to perform this music. You know, so and we feel that deeply, every time. For me, it's like people come to concerts for all sorts of reasons. Like if you go to, concert hall X and whatever's on the program, like there's however many people are there, different individuals have all sorts of reasons that they're coming there. Right. And they're going to have whatever experiences they're having. When for our concerts, for these Final Fantasy music concerts, it's incredible how much shared, reasons and goals there are with people who are there. It's very simple and pure in the sense that most people already have a deep relationship with the music. Okay. And maybe there are some people who don't, like they're somebody's friend or somebody's parents, or all sorts of stuff. Right. But that's still an important relationship to the music in a different kind of way. So most of the people have a deep relationship with the music already. And they want to have a pure live music experience. They want to be in the room together in community, right? Sharing these experiences together. And and what else do you want out of a concert going audience? I mean, it's almost too good to be true. Right. Is my feeling.
I feel like they always feel that this is a very safe environment for them to come in. Yeah. They're amongst friends and community that share a lot of their, and we'll find this all the time. When you play a particular piece, you're certainly going to have some audience that is really into 9 or Final Fantasy 10 or 14, but they can come together as a community and appreciate all of this and hear the through line of how the music has developed as well. It's such an honor to be able to do this and to do it for this long and for it to continue developing. We see, talking about the future, we see the next 3 to 5 years of development going forward. So it's really exciting for us to celebrate 35th anniversary and move forward. There's a lot of new stuff on the horizon.
So, interestingly, with this question, have either of you ever had the time, with everything that you do, to actually play through any of the Final Fantasy games? And if so, do you have a particular favorite? Eric, I'll start with you.
Oh, really? I mean, I basically can't get him to stop playing. It's like, but
hey, I've got 7 on my phone. That's my answer.
I mean, the answer is that yes. I have definitely played the games, and the truth is that I'm all about the music. I mean, when I was growing up, I would hang out with friends playing video games and dig the music. Let them play.
Didn't have to play it all right. Yeah,
they've developed the skills. Let me enjoy. What's going on. I'm not going to be as good as them without a bunch of work. Getting this in. It's not that I'm against the work, but I got I'm a music guy. I'm all about music. It's just, that's the truth. And I don't like to, present it any other way. I'm in love with the music. I love the beauty, the visuals. I think that there are themes, and I don't mean musical themes. I mean story themes, and plot themes, and character themes, and all sorts. There's a lot of rewarding and nutritious stuff there that I totally dig, and. At my core, I'm all about the music.
I'm adding one thing, because I feel exactly the same way, but I'll also say I do have 7 on my phone, but I've got to tell you, it's too damn hard. It's really difficult.
Wait, did you have the options to kind of, breeze through it? Because I also have the phone version. And I know they kind of give you a little bit of a leeway. So if it's a little bit too hard, don't be afraid to just hit the option button.
And I also will say
for the music.
But I will also say that working with the composers directly is an important part for us, because we actually can see the individual, where is this score in the game? What kind of scene is it used for? What did the composer originally intend with that? And how is it developed forward in the game? What other variations are there? Working with that directly, I mean, there's so much work involved with the music production that we kind of focus on that most of the time.
Yeah, there's a lot of complexity if you let yourself get in there, right?
Art in general.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, thank you so much. I got 2 more questions for you, but I just want to, pause to say thank you very much. This has been enlightening. This has been so much fun to talk with you guys and to learn more about what you guys do for this grand game series out there.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Absolutely. So my second to the last question, you both had other great opportunities outside of this concert and performance and collaborated with some well-known and award-winning names in music and pop culture. Arnie, you're a Grammy winner yourself, so you've collaborated with a lot of people. Who would you say is some of your favorites to work with?
Favorites now.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Thank you for emphasizing.
Well, the with all the artists and productions that I've worked on, it's one constant factor is the variety of these things, and that's what's so much fun. You're working on films for a while, then you're working on jingles, and you're working on with solo artists out in the world. I mean, it's the variety of all these things, and I think, honestly speaking, it's bringing all of those things to the table when we're doing these concerts. Sync with video, scoring for films, working with solo pop artists. Who's the most fun? The most, my favorite?
Barbie.
Listen, we had a great time with Mannheim Steamroller for, 20-something years. But I mean, honestly speaking, working with world-renowned artists like Diana Ross and Peter Cetera, and I can go on and on, Jewel, all of these people. I mean, it's just each one of them brings a different factor. And I'm in awe of some of these people. I'll never forget with Diana Ross that she could just stand up there for 3 hours and deliver song after song after song. Her voice never got tired. She was ready to go on to the next thing. And I mean, just unbelievable stamina. But again, I've worked with so many different artists. They're all rewarding. I mean, listen, Rod Stewart was a lot of fun.
Oh, I'm sure.
They're all fun,
Being that I'm from Philadelphia, I would be remiss if I didn't ask Patti LaBelle. How was that?
Oh,
yeah, that was amazing.
I'll tell you, it was loud. Go ahead.
No,
that sounds about right.
I mean, we've had different experiences
Right,
with Patti
that's
LaBelle,
right.
not together.
Right.
So so I can't speak for my
you did
fathers
the-
here, but
did the show, yeah.
meeting her at the rehearsal for the Oprah, surprise spectacular, and getting to work on that with her, like rehearse it with her, and try and be there, as the support for her to do what she does. It's like, wow, it's heady stuff. I mean, and just watching what she does in a rehearsal. I mean, Aretha was in that same rehearsal room.
Wow.
And it's like and her entourage is like laughing at me because they're like, look at this guy, he's acting like he's in church, like he can't take it, right? I before you go with your Patti LaBelle story, I'll just say real quick that for me, being on tour with Weird Al and watching what he does every night.
Yeah.
Every night, whether we're in Billings, Montana, or we're at the Greek Theater in L.A., or at or at Forest Hills in Queens or whatever, just watching what he puts out there and how he gives it every ounce of what he has to maximize everybody's experience is really inspiring. I'll put that out there since you asked for something.
Fantastic.
Go.
No, I mean, it's true. But again, I would go back to, for me, the delight is this big variety of artists. I mean, Pavarotti, Bocelli, Three Tenors, all that aspect, Game of Thrones. I mean, we could go on and on. There's just every one of these things. It does bring something to the table when we come back and work on Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
Productions.
I mean, he came up doing sessions for Curtis Mayfield here in Chicago and stuff.
Hey.
You know what I'm saying? It's like
I was in his home doing sessions with Curtis Mayfield. We could go on and on. The Spinners.
Just milestone after milestone.
Yeah, a lot of people. But I mean, you put all that stuff together and the influences and how to move forward with music, and it really does contribute to all of that. Different ways to get an orchestra to play syncopations and accents and different ways to adapt that in there. So I treasure all of that stuff.
That is fantastic. I mean, to say, and it actually segues to our final question here. I mean, like, your caliber of work, and Eric's your caliber of work, to be able to work in the industry of gaming, you know, people, 10, 30, 20, 30 years ago would have gawked at the idea that your caliber of talents will be brought in for video games. You know, even in this state of pop culture, you know, in this generation, there are still some who may be a bit conservative when it comes to seeing video games as a sophisticated form of art and media. And what would you guys say to that? You know, if, you know, when somebody approaches that mentality, that ideology, if you will.
I know you want to say something on this,
No,
but
go.
I want to get in here with this because, like, I want to give some, you know, recognition to my father on this one because, like, the truth of the matter is that one of, like, the coolest things professionally about this guy is how he is all about great music, you know, coming from wherever it's coming from. You know what I'm saying? Right. And so there's no, and I really admired that, seeing that growing up. You know, whether it's on the Cookie Crisp commercial when I'm like 5 years old. And
I'm
like,
officially a fan now. That's one of my favorite series
you know,
growing
going
up.
to like a recording session, you know what I'm saying? Like, because we
Right.
do that kind of thing in Chicago, right?
Yeah.
You know, like to like what, you know, like what you're doing today. I mean, video game music, you know, live in concert or whatever else. The point is, you know, you don't need to have some special knowledge or a secret entrance fee, you know, or dues to create great music. You just need to do it. Right. You know what I mean? And like, and so I admire the hell out of him for that. Ed.
Very nice of you. But embracing all those different styles and synthesizing them so that you can actually work within them, not just appreciating it, but being able to work within those styles was something that was definitely a learning curve, you know, from very early on. And you get more and more comfortable with it. You can do more things. You can bring it further. You mentioned people like Curtis Mayfield and things like that. All of this builds towards these things. I can tell you stories from now till, you know, whatever. But I think it's really important. When we first started Distant Worlds, 2007, you know, there were orchestras and musicians out there that really questioned, should video game music be on the concert stage? Why, you know, why are we doing this? Now, years later, every orchestra is doing film with orchestra. They're doing, you know, movies with orchestra. And they're asking us, some of the same orchestras we've gone back to 5, 6, 8 times. They recognize what we're doing. We're bringing in a new audience that they haven't seen, and they're trying to expose them to orchestra venues and orchestra performance. And we need to grow some new audience for that art form as well. But yeah, it's a lot different now than when we first started. There is a greater appreciation, and people actually recognize that video games do belong there. They belong. That you can have a concert of video. I would never forget the conversations I've had with presenters at the beginning of Distant Worlds, like, yeah, it can play when it's next to a convention, but can it actually sell a separate concert ticket to a video game music concert? They didn't believe it. They didn't believe it could happen. So we had to go out and kind of prove that. Yeah. You know, you had to kind of establish that out there and say, look, this is what it can do, you know?
Right.
Clearly they believe it now.
They do, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, gentlemen, thank you so much. It's been an absolute honor to talk with you guys. Arnie, you especially, because with you being a Grammy winner and I'm already interviewed a Emmy winner, all I'm looking for now is an Oscar and a Tony Tony winner to get the EGOT or interviews at this point. So thank you for helping along that charge.
Interviews. I like
Thank you so much. It was really great, and you're going to be there in Philadelphia.
Absolutely. I'm not missing it for the world.
That's great. Look forward to meeting you in person.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh, I'm definitely. I will be there in person, definitely. And while we're at it, let's start plugging this event and other events that you guys have on. So I'm giving you guys the floor. It's all yours.
Okay, well, I mean, you're talking about the Philadelphia A New World Hit, which is September 16 at the Irvine Auditorium at UPenn. But in that vicinity, I guess we should also be talking about the Carnegie Hall hit for Distant Worlds at the beginning of January. We're
starting.
You know, like if we're going to talk Pennsylvania more, like there's like Pittsburgh hits for coming up in September.
Yeah, that's
for
a lot of
Distant
Pennsylvania,
Worlds.
right?
And I mean, Pennsylvania is a big state.
Yes.
But so those are a few things, and please visit our websites, right?
Yeah.
ffdistantworlds.com, ffnewworld.com.
There's a lot of concerts between now and April that are in the 35th anniversary of Final Fantasy celebration mode, and both New World and Distant Worlds, and check it out.
And they're totally different. I mean, we're really excited to share these special programs with you. I mean, it's a lot of fresh, special music.
And special guests attending.
That too.
Yeah.
Interesting.
We have
How
plenty
can
of
you
people
resist that?
coming from Japan to join us on a lot of these too.
Oh.
Yeah.
Couldn't have brought that to Philly.
We never know. We might surprise you.
All right, now. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed this very special edition of Talk Time Live exclusive. You got me all tongue-tied now. On behalf of myself, Arnie, and Eric, all I got to say is learn to let go, live life, and love all things anime, comics, movies, and games. This is ACMG Presents Talk Time Live. We are out of here. Take care, and I hope to see all of you on September 16th.